Hello, everyone, and welcome. Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, glad to be with you as the Eagles get ready for another big game, prime time on Monday night as the Washington Redskins come to Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles trying to get back to the top of the NFC East. They took a step in the right direction last Sunday with a win over the New York Giants, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show in Sounds of the Week. The Eagles coming back from a 19-3 deficit. They just don't say quit. Another person on the team who doesn't say quit, safety Chris Maragos. Now, here's a guy in the 9th season in the NFL. He wasn't wanted coming out of high school by any major college program, and he wasn't drafted by any NFL team. And yet, Chris Maragos is a survivor. He's a fighter, and he has made himself into a very fine NFL player. He's on injured reserve this year, but guess what? That is nothing compared to the fight he's had to get to the NFL. We take you back to the journey of Chris Maragos in this Goal to Go.
He was always really strong-willed, even when he was a young child. And Cindy was a teacher. He was so much trouble to her. She kind of handed him off to me and said, "Look, I'm going to work." And I think Chris and I kind of understood each other because our personalities are a lot alike.
With Chris, he was just so competitive that he always wanted to win. So that was the rub, because he wasn't compliant because he wanted to win. And when he was able to be in competitions like on teams and things like that, that really rounded him out really well because he had somewhere to put that energy, which was a nice, better balance in our home.
My mom, she might have yelled at me a total of 2 times my whole life. So she just showed us a lot of love all the time. Same thing with my dad. He was coaching my youth football teams, always involved, and I knew that I had a dad and I knew I had a brother that really were going to show me really, you know, what it looked like to be a man and how to live this life and do it the right way, and I was really fortunate for that.
Number 32, Chris Maragos.
Yeah, whatever season it was, he was involved. Football, basketball,
Track.
baseball, track. He liked everything. You know, when the season switched, he liked that. He was on to that.
In Racine, my hometown, we had a great youth sports organization, Racine Youth Sports. I always played upgrades. You know, I was my brother's baseball team. He was 3 years older than me. I was always playing a year up in football, so the kids were always bigger, faster, stronger. And so it kind of made me this tough, you know, gritty type player.
Chris Maragos was the most athletic kid that we ever coached. He could play any place. Chris's best position was probably a free safety, but he also played like a flanker with us. He also was a backup quarterback, backup running back. He kicked, he punted, he returned kickoffs, he returned punts. There was one particular kickoff return, and I'm guessing he was 10 years old, that just physically couldn't happen. I mean, it was one of those where I believe he went to the right with the ball, and the whistle almost blew because there was no way he was going to escape that. And he was able to and put on a highlight reel type of return and scored a touchdown.
So here we are at Lockwood Park. This is really where I started out my career. This is where my first football game was. This is where I started playing Pop Warner football from 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade until I started getting a little bit older. And really my first tackle was right about over here. It was a sweep play, and the team ran a sweep play to the sideline, and I chased it down from the side. And I can remember hitting the guy like right about here, boom, right in the sideline, right by my coach's feet. And it was kind of a cool moment. My coach picked me up and gave me an attaboy and all that kind of stuff. And you know, at that point, man, I was hooked. I'd have an uncle that lived right up the way here. He would walk to games. My grandparents would come, and they'd sit, you know, either right up on the sidelines here, or they'd sit up on the hills over here. And I can always remember them being there supporting me. And still to this day, the coolest thing is, you know, my family, they call themselves the 42 crew. That's like what they call themselves.
Wow, great game.
At a young age, you know, I really knew that football was something that I loved. I didn't lose a game until I got to my freshman year in high school. So from 2nd grade all the way until high school, I never lost a game. And so I knew what it looked like to have success. I would say that it really started to be something to where I thought I could take it further, probably around like 8th grade.
Between his 9th grade year, the end of his 9th grade year, and his sophomore year of high school, him and one of his little buddies, his friends, started getting together and smoking pot. Cindy called me at my Bible study and said, "Hey, you got to come home." I said, "What?" She said, "You got to come home because we found out that Chris, A, has been smoking pot, and B, sold a joint to somebody at one of the school functions." We called his coach, his head coach at the time, and I said to him, "We'd like to keep Chris out of football indefinitely." And I said, "You know, we're more concerned about Chris's character than we are about whether he plays football," and so on and so forth. So the following day, he went to his teammates and he apologized to his teammates and apologized to his coaches about what he had done, and he asked for their forgiveness, actually.
The one thing I think that I've always had a strong conviction on as a person and as an athlete is that man next to me. And I really started to realize that the things and the decisions I was making were having a strong correlation of affecting a lot of the people that I was around me.
That started to be the life-changing process in Chris's life. And it was shortly after that that Chris actually had the spiritual renovation. So character-wise, he was being developed, and then the Lord was working on him spiritually at the same time, and that's why you see now the individual that Chris is and why faith is such a big part of his life.
After that incident, he really showed remorse. The school never had a suspension on him. It was us. And then the coach was very supportive of the way we looked at things. So we let him play the next game, and he proved himself, and his behavior had been great ever since, as far as we know.
In Wisconsin, the two rivals is the oldest rivalry in the state of Wisconsin, Park High School and Horlick High School. So I went to Park High School for my first 3 years in high school, but I realized that if I wanted to get recruited to college, I was gonna have to make the transition to Horlick High School, which was a passing offense. I was playing wide receiver at the time. Football season started out great. I was leading the state in receptions.
When I first met Chris, when he came over to Horlick, and we knew what the football talent was that we were gonna get. We didn't realize the leadership and the character we were gonna get from him. And immediately, I remember sitting probably the first week that he was in the program, and the whole team is sitting in the auditorium, and Chris is in front of all of his teammates sharing his faith. I mean, that just shows the kind of character the kid has. There was a play up at Franklin where he picked off a pass and broke like 2 or 3 tackles and then hightailed it down the sideline. And you could just see him pulling away from everybody, and it was like, wow, that was a D1 play.
When you go from high school to college, it's a big jump. You know, when I showed up at Western Michigan, I was issue number 128. I was dressing in the visitors' locker room. I had a high top pair of cleats that were used. I knew that I had a long road to go. I think I was 13 out of 13 on the depth chart. So the cool thing about Western Michigan, I met my wife there. You know, we were dating at the time. And really when I was getting ready to leave Western Michigan, I was gonna transfer down to a Division II school. It was like 30 minutes, and they were like Division II national champions. But I knew that there was something drawing me back to Wisconsin. I had an opportunity to walk onto the team there, which was crazy.
Nick and Cindy, his parents, had 2 tickets for a Badger game. And so my wife and I went up to the Badger game, and the season ticket holders that were sitting in front of us were talking to us about Chris and about Nick and Cindy, and saying, how do you think Chris could play here someday? And I remember thinking, you know, character-wise, talent-wise, absolutely. But he didn't fit the mold of what, you know, the D1 schools were looking for in terms of height and overall size and everything else. I said, you know what, if anybody can do it, it's gonna be Chris.
Harnish under a blitz, broke it up, incomplete. The senior, the captain, Chris Maragos.
How I got to Wisconsin was unbelievable. So my brother was involved in a campus ministry at Wisconsin where one of the former players who now was a team captain on the team, who was a former walk-on, was now like the best player on the team. And so my brother reached out to him and said, hey, listen, my brother's kind of a little bit like you, small town in Wisconsin, would love to play for Wisconsin. He's a wide receiver. And he said, hey, bring his film to me. I'll check it out, and we'll see where it goes. And so I sent him my film in the mail. He watched it. He showed the quarterback, Tyler Donovan. Tyler Donovan liked it. Next thing I know, they're taking it to Brett Bielema, the head coach. And I get a call from Brett Bielema, the head coach at Wisconsin. I got accepted in the school in like 2 weeks, and next thing I know, I was like, this is where I'm going.
When he didn't get drafted, and he thought he would be drafted in the later rounds, he was, of course, really disappointed. But he got immediate phone calls, I think, from 3 or 4 pro teams, one of which was the San Francisco 49ers. He had a great camp in San Francisco, but unfortunately, they did cut him. And but they asked him to come back to the practice squad, and I can remember we were out there with them, and Sarah and Chris were actually living in a hotel at that time because you didn't know whether you're going to make the team or not.
I was not recruited out of high school. I walked on at 2 different colleges. I didn't get a scholarship until my 5th year in college. I go undrafted. There's a lot of times where I felt like giving up, for sure. Definitely my faith brought me through that. I knew that, God had ordered my steps. A famous quote that, I really kind of live by, it says, success is a byproduct, so focus on your product. I think it was John Wooden that said that. So many people look at the end results, but the reality of it is that you have to just focus on your product. And if you have a good product and you have a good game, if you have a good substance to who you are, then the success will come after that. It's a blessing, man. I mean, to play in this league with the level of athlete, to play against the talent that you do, and to even be a part of that it's an honor for sure.
It was a game the Eagles had to have. The New York Giants coming to town last Sunday, the NFC East. Title hopes still alive for the Eagles, but it didn't go exactly the way the Eagles wanted in the first half. But they showed grit, they showed determination, and at the end of the day, the Eagles had secured themselves a thrilling victory over one of their most fierce rivals. Let's take a look at the game from the inside. It's our Sounds of the Week.
On Thursday night, October 11th, the Eagles trounced the Giants 34-13 to even their record at 3-3. Since then, the Eagles have lost 3 of their last 4. They haven't won here since September. Good afternoon, everyone. Merrill Reese and Mike Wick at Lincoln Financial Field as the 4-6 Eagles and the 3-7 Giants meet for the 174th time.
Coming off a loss to the Saints where every aspect of the team was questioned, the Philadelphia Eagles still controlled their own playoff prospects. But slow starts on offense and defense had plagued the Eagles, and Week 12 was no different.
Manning backs up. Now he gives it off, and running up the middle, and in for the touchdown is Barkley. Manning underneath, gave it to Barkley, and right up the middle for 13 yards.
The Giants began the day with a touchdown from Saquon Barkley and 2 field goals. The Eagles were in the same position they had found themselves in previous weeks. They were trailing. They needed to score, and they needed to score quickly.
Wentz gives it to Clement. Clement to the 40. Clement to the 35. Clement down to the 30. They need some points. Ball is spotted. The kick is away, and the kick is good, and the Eagles are on the board.
The Giants immediately answered back with a 51-yard Saquon Barkley touchdown. The lead that had been as high as 12 points grew to 16. The Eagles were now in danger of losing their home crowd along with the game.
And the fans here are booing. We have 4:06 remaining to be played in the first half. Can the Eagles score a touchdown? Wentz drops, looks up, fires over the middle. Leaping reception, Ertz. And Goddard makes the catch down across the 20. Wentz goes back. He is firing. It is complete. Breaking a tackle is Ertz, and he's in for the touchdown.
The celebration was short-lived as the Giants immediately drove the field. But Malcolm Jenkins had other ideas as he lured Eli Manning into the first turnover of the game.
Manning, he steps up, firing for the end zone. Intercepted! Intercepted! Jenkins, he's across the 20. He's across the 25. Intercepted!
Halftime thwarted any chance at cutting into the Giants' lead after the interception. But the defense came out in the third quarter and built on that momentum.
Manning fakes. He's back. He's looking. He is hit. They've sacked him back at the 2.
There it is.
Here comes the rush. They've got him! They've got him at the 9. Chris Long and Michael Bennett.
The energy in Lincoln Financial Field was palpable in the third quarter, but the Eagles only managed to score a field goal off the foot of Jake Elliott. They entered the final 15 minutes trailing by 5 points. The offense that had been shaky all day would need to put the ball in the end zone.
Wentz fakes, lets it go, he dumps it off, and running with the football is Clement, and Clement has a first down and more. He's at the 40. He is down near the 35-yard line. Wentz back to Adams. He pushes, he shoves, he's in. Touchdown. Eagles take the lead.
The Eagles held the Giants to a field goal on their ensuing drive. The score was now tied at 22 with just under 6 minutes remaining in the game. Philadelphia had the opportunity to take back the lead for good.
Wentz fakes, Wentz rolls, Wentz fires, complete on the far side of the field. It's Jeffrey. It is 4th and 1. Wentz fires, complete. Aguilar down to the 30. Clock ticking inside a minute. And it will be 4th and 5, and it will be up to Jake Elliott. The ball is spotted. The kick is away. And the kick is good!
After the field goal, there was still some time remaining on the clock. The Giants would have one last gasp at victory as the fans held their collective breath.
Manning calling for the football. He's back. He's looking. Fires over the middle, complete. They go with the lateral. Tackle made. Game over.
Grugier Hill.
Grugier Hill made the final stop, and the Eagles have saved their season.
An NFC East rivalry is renewed on Monday night when the Washington Redskins come to Lincoln Financial Field for the first meeting in 2018 between the Eagles and the Redskins. It's been so much fun over the years playing Washington, and we'll take a look back at one of the memorable games from 2004, a big one for Brian Westbrook. It's our old school All-22 with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick when we return to Inside the Eagles.
Hi everyone, I'm Merrill Reese, along with Mike Quick, and welcome to Old School All-22. Mike, 2004 was a special Eagles year. It led to the Super Bowl. It was not a very good year for the Washington Redskins, and the Eagles beat up on them thoroughly, and the star of the game, one Brian Westbrook.
Well, Brian Westbrook was the star of many of those games through that era, but Donovan McNabb also one of the big stars in that game. Westbrook had 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter in that game. Let's take a look. Up by 1 score late in the 4th quarter, the Eagles faced 3rd and goal from the Washington 1-yard line. The offense came out with an interesting look. This is a split backfield set with Brian Westbrook to the right and Terrell Owens to the left. Just before the snap, McNabb sends T.O. in motion to the right. He's going to run a corner route, but not before setting a bit of an interference for the linebacker covering Westbrook man-to-man. That little rub route from T.O. gives Westbrook plenty of space to run to the flat and catch a touchdown pass. The Eagles again had the ball down in the red zone, and again, it was Westbrook's name called in the huddle. This time, Westbrook is the lone back in the backfield, and just before the snap, McNabb shifts the entire formation, spreading the Redskins out with an empty set. This puts Westbrook one-on-one in space with linebacker Antonio Pierce, a matchup that number 36 wins easily. B. West runs a jerk route in the middle of the field, and Pierce had no chance to cover him, and he sprints to the end zone for a leaping touchdown to seal the victory.
Inside the Eagles is brought to you by McDonald's, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by Rothman Institute at Jefferson, the official orthopedic and healthcare partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. In his first action of the season last week, Tim Jernigan brought some definite energy to the Eagles defense, and now the team is looking for more from him down the stretch. He is our subject this week in our Geico Ask an Eagle. You ask the questions, we get you the answers.
From @Nation of Eagles asks, how many grills do you own, and does it make it difficult to brush your teeth? The magic answer is there's only one. There's only one set because my teeth are permanent. I can't take them out. I made a decision to get permanent because when you have plates and stuff in your mouth, it messes up your actual teeth, and they're easy to lose and things like that. So I went to the dentist and got permanent, so they don't come out.
And that is going to do it for this week's Inside the Eagles. We thank you so much for joining us. A reminder, on Monday night, the Eagles and the Washington Redskins at Lincoln Financial Field, another must-win game for the Eagles. Follow us on PhiladelphiaEagles.com and our official team app throughout the day and the night. Capped off by our Eagles Live podcast, Instant Reaction, with some coverage of the Eagles and the Redskins, a showdown in the NFC East. Thanks so much, everyone. Have yourselves a great Eagles weekend, and fly, Eagles, fly.